Well, again, here's a game that I played in sparring mode against Fritz 13. I've been playing Fritz 13 a lot lately. So, anyway, let's take a look. I was white, and this was again a blitz game. And my opponent played, well, the computer played c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6. Notice that compared to my other games that I've posted, I have played a lot of c4 and c3 early and stuff. But this is actually a more open game than my other examples. Even though I did say that I should try to play close games, but you know, this is still the opening. And so far, this is old book, so I won't talk too much about this. I'm sure you've seen this many times. King h1. Well, one point with King h1 is simply to avoid any Queen b6 ideas, but even though of course it wouldn't work here because of the, let's say, Queen b6, I can just play knight to f5, and the queen obviously cannot take the bishop, so either the queen has to go back or take the pawn. If it takes the pawn, then I will probably take on e7 or something like that, so that wouldn't work. Anyway, so King h1, standard move, bishop d7, Queen e1, and now d5. I think the book move here is actually b5. But the computer played d5, which, well, we are both out of book here, so after e5, knight e4, I just took. D takes c3. c3 is just, well, I suppose it's mainly just solidifying my, well, my knight here on d4. For example, I mean, if black takes, I can either take back with my pawn or my bishop here, so I decided to play that move. And here, Queen c7. I ran again an analysis right after the game, and I think Fritz suggests something like knight takes, bishop c6, and king g1. And this is supposed to be equal according to Fritz. But anyway, Queen c7, and I played rook d1. Again, the computer suggested knight b3, followed by something like knight a5 and knight b2 d2, simply stopping knight c4. And here b5, knight takes, knight c4, bishop takes, b takes, and I don't know. I think white is much better here, but the black does have the open b file here for his rooks. But anyway, I play rook d1, rook f to d8, queen f2. And this was a very bad move according to Fritz. The move should have been something like queen a5, knight takes, bishop b6. Obviously loses the exchange. But instead of that, I actually returned the favor, so to speak, with another bad move, rook d2. Notice that this was a blitz game, and obviously you cannot expect the best moves. I mean, from a human perspective. But anyway, I didn't see knight b3 here, followed by b5 and bishop b6. This is all analysis by the computer. But anyway, rook d2, knight takes, bishop b5, rook f to d1, and queen c6, bishop e3. So far so good. Bishop c4, I play rook takes, bishop takes, queen takes, a3, h6, h3. h3 obviously is just to avoid any back rank ideas, so that's a good move to give the king an escape square, so to speak. Bishop e7, king h2, b5, queen e2, bishop h4, queen d4. And this is again a very bad move according to Fritz. Obviously queen takes, bishop e1 would have been better. But you know, it was sparring mode, even though it was the hardest option in sparring mode. I turned up everything, every level there was. So anyway, queen takes, e takes, g3, bishop d8, king g2, f5, and here I played an unnecessary move, king f3. I should play something like king f2 instead, and then king e1 followed by king d2. But it doesn't really matter. The pawn on d3 is not going anywhere, and it's going to drop off. So a5, king f2 anyway, g5, King e1, g takes, king f7, king d2, king e7, king takes, king d7, bishop c5. Well, it looks difficult for white to actually break through anywhere, but let's play on a couple more moves. Well, maybe 10 or 15 moves more. So king c6, and obviously white is much better here. I have 3 pawns against 2 pawns on the queen side, but on the other hand, it's very difficult to break through. Bishop f8, attacking the pawn, h5, protecting, b3, bishop c7, bishop e7, bishop b6, c4, takes. So now my king has, well, advanced 1 square to c7, c4, bishop e3, and bishop g5. Now this is a little bit of a problem, because obviously I have to protect my pawn at least temporarily on f4, but on the other hand I have to do something, and so I played b4, and a takes. Taking with the king is not a very good idea here, because taking with the pawn at least stops the black king from ever entering on c5, for example, and I still have, in case the black king would ever move somewhere, to get up to b5. Okay, so now we just made a bunch of moves, and I played my bishop back. It's a sort of triangulating my bishop somewhere, because obviously I have to keep an eye on my f4 pawn. And one idea might be to just give a check here, and then perhaps just do something. And if this bishop would ever take, I can perhaps I don't know, protect. I mean, for example, on d4, and you know, my pawn here on e5, and somehow get into black's queen side. So, okay, so black played h4, giving up a pawn. One other idea was king c7, but this is still much better for white. I'm not sure if it's winning, but at least it's much better according to the computer. But h4, obviously, now I have a choice. I can either move my king back and forth, or I can take on h4 and let black take my f4 pawn, and that's actually what happened here. I had to do something, so I gave a check, and the king went to b7, and here I took the pawn, and bishop takes, and again there's a slight problem here, because now my pawn here on e5 is hanging, so I have to protect, and now bishop h6. I played bishop h4 and now f4. Again a bad move, because now obviously I can attack that pawn with both my my bishop and my king. But on the other hand, I have to leave this pawn. But I do have this pawn on the h file, and that's the key. I mean, that's the most important point in this situation. So h4, bishop g7, bishop d4, bishop f8. So I would just go to the most important positions here. So obviously now my king is no longer interested in the queen side, because now I have a h pawn here and a pass pawn on my king side, so to speak. And well, my bishop takes care of his pass pawn, and obviously after h6 black is forced to take, and now I'm up a piece, and this is very simple, obviously. And I can just advance both my pawns, and that's actually also what happened. So I made 2 queens, and anybody can win something like this. So queen a7 checkmate. So a quick look at the opening one more time. Again, this was a Sicilian Schwenningen, all book until the move 11 queen e1, and then after d5 we both went out of book. So like I said, instead of d5 here, the book move would have been b5. Okay, hope you enjoyed this quick look at a game that I played once more in sparring mode against Fritz 13, and see you soon.